everyone, this is Julia. Thank you so much for joining me on my craft room adventures, and today I'm back with day 5 of my holiday card series. And for this one, I actually have a bit of a different project to share with you. This time I didn't make a card, but I made a 3D light up frame for my sister. So to start out, I stamped out all of my images onto Neenah Solo White cardstock, and I'm using Copic markers to color them in. For my greens, I'm using G29, G17, G02, and G00. And for time's sake, I'm just showing you the combination of, or the coloring of one image, because as you can see, there's a lot of them and it's pretty repetitive. So I just used, when you see green shade, this is the combination that I used for all of the images. And I made sure to leave the tips of the Christmas trees fairly light because I wanted to add some snow there. For my booths and for other warm browns, I'm using E37, E35, E33, E31, and E30. I'm just trying to create a sort of wood grain pattern of sorts. This is my first time actually doing that, so I just went with it and tried to, make it look a little bit uneven so that there's some texture there. Just going back in with the second layer of the E37, back in with the E35, and I really do need to label those. And then I realized that I also needed to color in the inside of the booths, because on Christmas markets here, the booths are of course closed because it's winter. So I'm just using the same colors, the E37, E35, and E33, just to color that in. Most of it will be covered with my critters, so I wasn't too careful with it, but I just wanted some color there. Then I'm going in with E15, E13, and E11 for my reindeer. Just a nice warm brown combination. Also going in with a little bit of E18 and E15 for the hooves. And I'm going in with E30 for the lightest part and also for the antlers. For the mice and the bear, I'm using E50 markers. For my mice, I'm using E55 as my darkest shade. Just placing it down where I want my darkest areas to be, and I still wanted to keep them fairly light, so I'm not using a lot of that. Then blending that out with E53. Then going over the edges with E51. And then blending everything together with E50. And for the bears, I'm using the same color combination. I just skipped the E55 to keep them a bit lighter. So I just used E53, E51, and E50. Also going over the tummies with a little bit of E50. Colorate in the noses with E55. And I also added a little bit of shading beneath the scarves with E53. And blended that out again with E50. For the skates and any of the other grays, I'm using C7, then C5, C3, and for the skates I wanted to keep them, or the shoes, but I'm going to cover the skate part. I just wanted to keep them fairly dark. For the rest, I'm also using C1 and C0. Then I wanted to add two kind of red shades, so I'm using R30s, R35, R32, and R30 for more of a pinkish red tone. And for my deep red shades, I'm using R89, R29, and R14. And again, it's the same shade for all of the images on the card. For my yellows or golds, I'm using Y28, YR23, And then going over everything with Y15 to just pull it more yellow gold, and then using Y11 as my highlight shade. For my background, I'm using a panel of Bristol Smooth Cardstock, and I'm ink blending Tumbled Glass, Faded Jeans, Blueprint Sketch, Chipped Sapphire, and Black Soot on it. I use regular distress inks for a change, and I'm just ink blending the Tumbled Glass first because I wanted there to be a bit of a lighter hue behind all the booths. And since we're ink blending now, I thought I would tell you why I'm actually making this particular project. My sister's birthday was yesterday when I'm recording the voiceover for this, but since it's a bit of a different situation this year, Germany is usually super popular for Christmas markets. Every town, every city has their own Christmas market, even if it's just a few booths. Some have like giant Christmas markets, like for example, Cologne has 4 different big Christmas markets in the city center, and it's the thing to do during Christmas time. You go there, they have so much like different Christmas foods and drinks and like artisanal stuff you can buy as presents and Christmas ornaments, and it's just so nice. It's all lit up everywhere, Christmas trees, those little wooden booths with like presents on the roofs, and it's just really, really lovely. And when you go there in the evening, it's just such a nice atmosphere. And my sister is obsessed with Christmas markets. She goes to so many every year, and she even travels to some because they're like special. And due to COVID this year, everything was canceled, so there are no Christmas markets this year, and she is super sad about it because that was like her thing to do. That was her Christmas thing. She did every year, like every weekend, even on weekdays, sometimes when she had time with her husband, and she was just really bummed about it, and I was so sad. And I thought, well, maybe I can make her a little Christmas market to cheer her up. She already had like a Christmas present picked out that she wanted, and I always make her something like crafty that I think she would enjoy. And so I came up with the idea to make a light up frame of like popular Christmas markets around our area. We have this one Christmas market that has like this little, not little, it's huge net over all of the booths. It's like a canopy of lights, and it's just gorgeous, and that's why I wanted to add the star string of light at the top. And in another town, they have this really amazing tradition where they have like a sleigh that slides over the entire like plaza, and there's actually Santa in there, and it's just so fun. They do that every day for like the kids as like a special treat, and it's just so fun. So this is how I came up with the idea. And yeah, now I'm also adding, back to the card, now I'm also adding splatters of liquid stardust and Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, and also some Finetech Gold metallic watercolor, just to add a little bit of warmth and interest, or more interest, to the background. So now I'm just scoring my stabilizer pieces for the 3D part of my box, and on screen you can see the measurements I used, but I didn't think it would be useful for you to list them because it would always depend on the kind of box you use. You would need to measure to figure out how wide they would have to be, but you just score them 5 times, cut them off at the end, and then you just fold along the score lines, and you can just add tape or liquid glue to one of the flaps, and it just creates the cube that will hold up your elements. And I made them in black and in white because I wanted the front parts to be white in case the light string was like just seeing through, so that it wouldn't be black behind there. I did end up making 2 different sizes just for some variation because I wanted or I needed to put the insert further back into the frame because the kind of box that I made wasn't meant to be taken apart. I just heated up and basically removed the glue. That's why it doesn't look that nice at the edge. So I needed to have like a separation between the actual back so that it wouldn't show. Now I'm just cutting a slit into the boots and I'm just adding my critters with some liquid glue. And since I wasn't quite sure how many boots I would be able to fit, so I just did 8. I ended up using 6 in my frame. And now it's time to decorate them. And with German Christmas markets, most of the booths are actually food related. You can get so many different foods and drinks there. And yeah, so I also made lots of food booths. So we have like cookies and, you know, I was thinking like hot chocolate or what we call Glühwein. So it's basically like a hot malt cider, I think. Then we have like some candy, some presents, ginger mouse, which I thought was cute because the mice are going to the Christmas market. Also some carols, which isn't really a booth that, you know, it would sell something. That's actually one I didn't end up using. But I didn't have that many like tiny images to work with. So it just went with everything I got. And all the stamps and dies I used, I will list below the video. So you can go check that out if you want to know what I used. And the really tiny ones are from village shops. So the little cup and the shopping bag and stuff. And those are all of my booths. So for the Santa mouse, I just used the sleigh from Over the Mountains and the reindeer. And I just added the mouse in the sleigh. Just glued it all together. And now it's time to add my images. I actually used foam tape for most of them. Because I knew that I would have them set back inside the box, so it would be nice to have some dimension there and not have them glued down flat. If you're making like a shadow box card that would fold flat, you would want them to be like glued down to the background, but for this I actually used foam tape. And for the Santa mouse, since I wanted it to be like propped up from the background, but I had nothing to adhere it to back there, I just used 3 layers of regular foam squares. Because with a frame you wouldn't be able to see behind there, so it just added a nice bit of dimension. Now I'm just adding all of my images, like the Christmas trees, just figuring out where they would go. This is the lowest hill that I'm going to be using, and I just added the trees mostly using liquid glue and a little few in the front with foam squares, and the mice and the booths and also the bench I added with foam squares as well. And then I realized that I wouldn't be able to figure out the placement of the second layer before I attach everything. So I just went ahead and used the cubes that I made. Like I said, I made them out of black and white cardstock. Just in case for the front it would be showing. I wasn't quite sure what kind of distance I would want, so I just made several. It's quick to do, and then I wouldn't have to go back in with the cutting and the scoring once I was assembling. Now I'm just adding the little cubes to the hills, and I'm making sure I'm just using a piece of cardstock or like right here just another cube to make sure it's all like nice and lined up, because the cubes have to be at the bottom because that's how we attach everything, and they also need to be lined up so that they would slide into the frame nicely. Now it's time to decorate the second layer, and I'm just adding the booths. I removed the backing paper of the foam tape, but I didn't press down yet so that I can still move them around, and I'm actually ending up moving around the bottom booths as well, because they would be like parallel to the top layer, and I didn't want that. I wanted there to be like a little bit of a change up from the first to the second layer. Now just added that with liquid glue because I really needed it to come up a bit higher so that it would at least a little bit stand out, because this was the only decorated tree out of all my stamp sets that I found that wasn't too tall, because the other one I have was just giant in the scene. But I really wanted it to come up a little bit higher. Now I'm just playing around with the placement of all my booths. Also adding in more trees. I know that this project is kind of involved, and it took me, I think, like 2-3 days to complete, but all in all I would say it took me about 6-7 hours to make, so it really wasn't too bad, I think. Most of the time was actually spent coloring, because I did have a lot of images to color, but yeah, I really thought it would be like a nice little touch for her birthday to give her her own little Christmas market. Because like I said, she was so sad that there weren't any Christmas markets this year. And yeah, she really liked it. So I gave it to her yesterday on her birthday, of course. So I was really, really happy that she enjoyed her little gift, and she already placed it in her living room. So super thrilled about that. Again, just adding all my little images, and I did have, as you can see up on the right corner, I did have quite a few images left over. Usually I try to plan the layout of my cards with stamps, but like for the boosts and stuff, I only had one. So this was kind of like coming together as I went, so I did have to have quite a few extra. I will figure out what to do with the other ones as I go. Here I'm just adding 3 layers of foam squares to the back so that it would have nice dimension back there. And this is basically the layout that my box will have. In the back I'm just using the black boxes, or the cubes, because this one you won't see, because or it won't shine through because there's already another layer back there. I just added another cube just to figure out my layout because it kept tilting. And now it's time to adhere both pieces to my background, just using a piece of paper to line it all up, making sure it's straight, that it's all attached nicely. And the piece of paper that I'm using is actually measured to fit inside the box that I will be using. And now the cubes that I'm using are the narrow ones I made. I made them again out of black and white just because I wasn't sure, because you know, you never know with light up things because things shine through, but this ended up being totally fine. I just needed those as spacers because as you will see, the edge of the box that I was using wasn't, like the edges weren't smooth, so I couldn't go up against the back, so I just made those spacers so that it would basically just be an insert sliding in and that you wouldn't be able to see any of the edges of the box. Now I'm just using the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White to add snow to everything, basically. I just added snow to all of the roofs of the booths and all of the Christmas trees, the bench, and yeah, everything really, all of the images. And I'm just showing a little bit here because this took me a while. And I really like the Bleed Proof White because it's super opaque, but you can't go over it with anything, as I realized later. I'm also just adding a few more white splatters over the images that I had colored, just to make it look like it's snowing. I did let this part dry for about 2 hours, so it wasn't that I was too quick about it. I just added some Nouveau crystal glaze to some of my images, then some shimmer pen. This is the Nouveau Aqua Shimmer Pen and Glitter Gloss, just for some added shine. Then I'm going in with a jelly roll pen just to add a few dots to a scarf of one of my mice. And then I'm going over the stickles, going over the snow with stickles, the Stardust stickles. And this is actually where I kind of went all wrong. It ended up being fine, but it didn't look quite the way I wanted it to, because the the bleed proof white was actually kind of dissolved by the moisture from the stickles. I thought if I let it dry long enough, it would be fine, but kind of wasn't. So it ended up being kind of like a transparent white, and it actually dulled quite a bit of the shine of the stickles. So if I were to do this again, I would either go with like a waterproof white marker that I've yet to find. If you have a recommendation, please do let me know. And I would either just go with a white or with a glitter, because this didn't quite end up looking the way I wanted. I just added the stickles all over where I had the snow. And this is the light up feature. I just used a light string with little stars. It's like a 20 LED light string that I got from a local shop. And I just used regular cello tape to just attach it to the back. And the box that I'm using is actually meant to be a piggy bank. So that's why I covered the slit up top with a piece of cardstock. Now I'm just gluing everything to the insert, and I made sure that I have quite a bit of room in the front because I wanted to add glitter there. And the bear is actually the part that is meant to be inside the piggy bank. This is how I bought it. And now I'm just placing down my Santa, making sure it lines up and that the stars aren't in the way, so that it's all like nicely lined up. Just pulling out the insert again and moving the wires of the light string so that it would look nicely with the insert that I made. And there we go. This is basically how it ends up being. And now I'm just using some, I will link it below. I'm not sure what it's called right now. It's just like this glass glitter, and it's super sparkly and pretty. And yeah, just filled it in and then carefully pushed in the insert. If you're doing this, make sure that most of the glitter is on the glass. Then slide in the insert, glue it down, and then you can stand it back up so the glitter doesn't seep beneath the insert, which is what happened to me the first go around. Now I'm just using some hot glue to attach the back. And usually when doing something like this, you would go for a nice like small battery pack that you could hide underneath the box. That would look so much nicer. But when you have this like flat batteries, you could have them on for a day, and by the end of the day it's already like not shining as pretty, and you would have to replace them at like every 1 or 2 days if you have them on a lot. And I wanted my sister to be able to use it, so I just went with a light string that has the 2 AA batteries, which from the back doesn't look as nice, but it's a lot more useful. And I also ended up covering the top. That says Sandra's Weihnachtsmarkt, Sandra's Christmas market. I just used the Lawn Fawn scalloped rectangle frames to cut the label, because the like edge, the like slit for where you put the coins was still kind of bothering me. So I just ended up covering it. And this is how our Christmas market turned out. I really had so much fun making this, and I really wanted to make it something, you know, special as a little gift. And it came together fairly quickly, so it's not something you can mass produce, but it also didn't take like ages. And this completes day 5 of my holiday card series. I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you have any questions about it, just please let me know. Like I said, any of the products I used will be listed down below. Thank you so very much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye!